The Silnas realized all the work they had done the night before to prepare for the Squires' offensive now represented their own personal playbook. The NBA was pressuring the ABA teams to reach agreement quickly. Time was tight. The Silnas knew this played in their favor. The Squires simply folded after failing a financial audit. The Kentucky Colonels negotiated a $3.3 million buyout from the 4 remaining ABA teams. And that just left the Silna brothers. And they were offered the same $3.3 million deal. The Silnas refused, but they had another idea.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Bradley Hartmann. I am thrilled you opted to listen to this episode today because this is one of my favorite stories of all time about business, about negotiation, about thoughtful planning and the benefits that come with it. But first, I do want to talk about our launch for the Sales Fundamentals Workshop coming April 1st through the 3rd, 2024 at the Omni Hotel in Fort Worth. This is our 5th annual. We have sold out every single one, and we will sell this out. There are limited seats available because my commitment to everyone who shows up is I will know you, I will know your goals, and I will know your name, and I will know your face. And once we get over 100 people, my ability to do that goes down rather quickly. So that is why we are capping the attendance of this event. So if you enroll by Friday, November 3rd at 5 p.m. Central, you will save $500 off the retail price, and you will get access to one of our 5 professional sales field manual courses. We got my brand new one on negotiation that I'll talk about here in a minute. And we've got prospecting, we've got time management. We have 2 other kind of really tactical ones for people who are not confident using the phone to interrupt and deliver value first. So if you're interested in that, again, $500 off the listing price, and then access to one of our professional sales field manual courses. They're blended learning. So you get a book, there's audio, there's video, there's an assessment. All of that's included, representing a $197 value, which I got to go with my team. That feels absurdly low for the amount of value we get in there, but that's where we are now. So once Friday hits, you will not get the free inclusion of the professional sales field manual course, one of the 5, and the price will go up $500. It'll go from $3,195 to $3,695. So if you have come and you know you're going to come again and you want your team there, go ahead, save the money. Let's book it right away. And remember, this is not just a 2.5-day event. Now, included in that price is everything except for your flight and your Uber to the hotel. Once you get there, we're going to cover all food. We cover all drinks. We cover all training. We cover all excursions down to Fort Worth, where we get some amazing food and have some really unique experiences. All of that is included. So I realize it is not a small sum. We're providing a ton of value included in there. You just got to get on the plane and you just get there, and we will handle everything else. And this is not just a 2.5-day event. We have training beforehand. We have training afterwards. We have a monthly accountability call to make sure that we are implementing the stuff that we cover and to bring our community closer together. So that's what we're talking about here. This is our launch. And again, the early registration will close at 5 p.m. Central Time on Friday, November 3rd, 2023. And again, this is absolutely going to sell out. So if you're interested, go online, register, shoot me an email, go to info@bradleyhartmanandco.com. Just email me. We'll make sure you get in. So, all right, then enough of that. Let's dive into the episode. The title of this episode is The Greatest Negotiation Move of All Time. The New York Yankees negotiated Babe Ruth away from the Boston Red Sox for $125,000. That was a great move. Red Auerbach, the general manager of the Boston Celtics, drafted Larry Bird with the 6th pick of the 1978 NBA draft, despite knowing full well Bird was returning for his senior year at Indiana State. So why would Auerbach do that? Well, Recognizing a transformational player when he saw one, Red knew Bird would be taken number 1 overall the following year. Furthermore, the legendary general manager knew the probability of his franchise, the Celtics, owning that first pick the following year was really low. So, Auerbach proactively selected Bird, watched him dominate college hoops the following year, and then signed him within the 365-day limit to which the Celtics owned the rights to sign him. That was a great move. More recently, Bobby Bonilla's exercise in delayed gratification was also brilliant. In January of 2001, Bonilla deferred the balance of his $5.9 million with an 8% interest that resulted in annual payments of $1.19 million every year from 2011 through 2035. Every July 1st is now celebrated as Bobby Bonilla Day. That's right. Despite last playing baseball in 2001, Bonilla will get paid more than $1 million every July through 2035, at which point he will be 72 years old. That was another great move. But the greatest move in the history of sport belongs to Ozzie and Daniel Silna, the Polyester Princes of New Jersey. If you have ever lamented the existence of wearable polyester, you have the Silna brothers to thank for that. Ozzie and Daniel were second-generation textile manufacturers and the first to introduce polyester as a fabric in the 1970s. The brothers wished to diversify their business. They looked into purchasing the Detroit Pistons of the NBA, but the $5 million asking price was too rich. Accurately anticipating an eventual merger of the two basketball leagues, the NBA and the upstart American Basketball Association, the ABA, they sought a more economical path to franchise ownership. Ozzie and Daniel purchased the Carolina Cougars of the ABA for $1.5 million. They promptly moved the team to St. Louis and rechristened the team the Spirits of St. Louis. St. Louis yawned. Less than 3,000 people attended each home game. The team lost money, as did the other 6 ABA teams. When the NBA finally agreed to a merger in 1976, ABA franchise owners were elated. Daniel and Ozzie believed 6 of the 7 teams would join the NBA, including their own team, the Spirits. The brothers were betting the Virginia Squires would be the odd team out. And when the Squires issued their demands of rightful compensation to step aside and allow the remaining teams to join the NBA, the Silnas wanted to be prepared. The Silnas' dream of owning an NBA franchise was within their grasp. The brothers and their lawyer went to work. They pulled an all-nighter, thinking through the myriad potential machinations, detailing dozens of possible concessions and innumerable alternatives. They role-played. They detailed the best-case scenario and the worst. They identified what they knew about each person who would be at the negotiating table personally and professionally. They attempted to identify each individual's specific wants and needs and who these individuals wished to impress. The Silna brothers drafted a pre-mortem, identifying the worst-case scenario, and then they worked backward to avoid such a fate. The following morning, the Silnas, exhausted but confident, possessed a neatly scripted 10-page plan on yellow legal paper. It was curling at the edges. The negotiation among the 7 ABA teams tipped off. Disaster struck immediately. Turns out the Silnas had been right and wrong. The Virginia Squires were, in fact, boxed out of the NBA, as were the Kentucky Colonels and the Spirits of St. Louis. The NBA would only allow 4 teams to join the league: the Denver Nuggets, the Indiana Pacers, the New York Nets, and the San Antonio Spurs. Crestfallen, the Silnas realized all the work they had done the night before to prepare for the Squires' offensive now represented their own personal playbook. The NBA was pressuring the ABA teams to reach agreement quickly. Time was tight. The Silnas knew this played in their favor. The Squires simply folded after failing a financial audit. The Kentucky Colonels negotiated a $3.3 million buyout from the 4 remaining ABA teams. And that just left the Silna brothers. And they were offered the same $3.3 million deal. The Silnas refused, but they had another idea. The brothers proposed accepting less money up front, only $2.2 million, which helped the cash-strapped teams. And all Ozzie and Daniel wished for in return was a small concession: 1/7 of the remaining 4 ABA teams' share in future broadcast revenue. Well, this is easy, the Nuggets, Pacers, Nets, and Spurs thought. After all, television revenue in 1976 for professional basketball was virtually non-existent. The newest NBA executives calculated in their heads, 1/7 of 0 is, yeah, sure, whatever. What are the terms then? The Silnas confidently said 2 words, in perpetuity, forever. Oh, and just 2 other minor things, the brother said. Just some legalese our lawyers making us include. 1, in the event the NBA expanded to more teams, their percentage of the broadly defined quote-unquote broadcast revenue could not be diluted. Add as many teams as you want, but our cut stays the same, they said. 2, in the event anyone in the future gets a little squirrely and tries to weasel out of this deal, we'll specify this agreement cannot, quote-unquote, be evaded or made obsolete. Yeah, sure, fine, yes, whatever. That was the response from the remaining 4 teams. They could not join the NBA if there was a lawsuit from the Silna brothers hanging over their heads. And so it was. The Silnas, the Garden State Polyester Princes, received 2% of the entire league's TV money forever. And you know what happened next. Well, who happened next? Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. In exchange for not running a team, the Silnas cashed checks totaling $300 million between 1976 and 2014. However, a buyout for far less than that amount was nearly consummated in 1982, just 6 years after the Silnas agreed not to have a team. There's a new TV deal, and it was going to put an additional $300,000 in the pockets of each NBA owner. The owners did not want Ozzie and David further enriching themselves by doing nothing. We need to kill this deal, the NBA said. So the league offered the brothers $5 million to be paid out over 8 years. The brothers evaluated their BATNA, a negotiating principle I cover in chapter 4 of my new book and negotiation course. And BATNA stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. BATNA. And it looked pretty good. The best alternative may be doing nothing at all. The brothers then evaluated their WATNA, a negotiating principle I completely made up and also included in chapter 4 of my new book and negotiation course. It stands for the worst alternative to a negotiated agreement. WATNA. The worst case? Well, the brothers would lose some friends, and Ozzie and Daniel didn't really like most of these owners anyway. So the Silnas countered with the inverse of the deal they received. They wanted $8 million to be paid out over 5 years. No deal, the NBA said. All right then, the brothers replied. We'll see you guys in another 5 years when the next deal, which will surely be larger, comes along. 12 months later, the $8 million over 5 years looked like a bargain. By the next TV deal, which included NBC, ABC, ESPN, TNT, and some company in this newfangled internet business called AOL Time Warner, the Silnas were not even interested in negotiating at all. Their deal was simply too good. So the NBA tried to muscle the Silnas. Over the course of the next decade, 3 different law firms representing the 4 former ABA teams tried to crack the agreement. Each one failed. As the league expanded, each new franchise was informed of their requirement to share revenues with these 2 brothers without a team. I gotta share how much? With who? Why? You can imagine their emotions and the expletives. In April of 2014, the NBA announced an agreement to rid themselves of the quote-unquote Silna problem. The league would pay the Silna brothers an additional, wait for it, $500 million to eliminate the most profitable NBA franchise that never was. Nearly 4 decades of pure profit due to an all-night negotiation prep meeting. Now, the Silna brothers' brilliant deal stemmed from 2 humble origins that you can take advantage of. Number 1, the willingness to prepare thoughtfully, and 2, the identification of surplus concessions. Too many firms in the construction space end up competing on price because they fail to thoughtfully and generously identify concessions. Concessions are things of value designed to give away during negotiation, the event, when we're sitting across from someone face to face. And by not thinking through concessions, the conversation descends inevitably to the lowest common denominator, which is price. Here's what I wrote in chapter 4 of the Field Manual 04-22 of the Professional Sales Field Manual series on negotiation. 4.6. Concessions are designed to give. Here's the harsh truth. You may do everything right and still not make the sale. Dejected after another loss, you're slouched in your lazy boy, slurping your third Pabst Blue Ribbon of the morning. You replay it over and over again in your mind, searching for the key to unlock the reason behind your sales failure. I did everything right, you moan to yourself as you startle your dog, whose name is Willie Loman. You're replaying everything you did in your head. I was likable. I delivered value first. I listened well. I took great notes. I asked intelligent questions. I uncovered multiple NFPOs. Those are needs, fears, and pains and opportunities for growth. I made the ROI, the return on investment. I made the math simple. I then asked for the business that I had earned, and they said no. As Aristotle said so eloquently some 1700 years ago, shit doth happen. Nobody bats 1,000. Everything you just articulated to yourself was part of your persuasion-inducing sales process. But sometimes persuasion doesn't work. In his book, Negotiating to Win, author Jim Thomas notes that the difference between persuasion and negotiation is concessions. Where the amateur negotiator views concessions as a sign of weakness, the expert negotiator understands concessions are designed to give away. As you review the TCO, this is the total cost of ownership, that you want to think about what is going through the mind of the person you're negotiating with. Again, total cost of ownership. And you think about your CTS, which is your cost to serve. As you think about those two lists, which I cover in 4.5, you can recognize these for what they are: potential concessions. Thomas writes about the need for surplus concessions, a laundry list of potential concessions thoughtfully generated and documented ahead of time that can be exchanged during a negotiation. The hard work in preparing for the stage of negotiating is identifying the concessions that may represent significant value to your counterpart and yet represent little value to you, and vice versa. Here are a few rules to always remember about concessions. I'm not going to repeat always in front of every single one of these 5 bullet points because I'm pretty sure it's going to be annoying to you, the listener, but just mentally include always in front of these. Number 1, get something in return for a concession. Number 2, exchange subsequently smaller concessions as time goes on. Keep track of what concessions you still hold. Ask what concessions would be valuable here. And number 5, reiterate that concessions are tentative pending final agreement. So as you think back on the greatest negotiation moves of all time, yeah, you can think of Babe Ruth, and he was a legend. He has his own candy bar. You can also think about Red Auerbach and Larry Bird. Both of those guys are legends in their own right. You can also think about Bobby Bonilla. I mean, every July 1st is Bobby Bonilla Day, at least through the year 2035. But never forget, the greatest negotiation move of all time was by 2 brothers you've never heard of who ran the most profitable NBA franchise of all time that never existed. So thank you for listening. Again, this is part of our launch for the Sales Fundamentals Workshop. If you register by Friday, November 3rd at 5 p.m., you're going to save $500 for $3,195. You're going to get the training that comes beforehand. You're going to have 2.5 days with us. We cover hotel. We cover all food. We cover excursions. If you would be interested in having an alcoholic drink at the end of the day, yeah, we're covering that as well. We're covering everything during the event. And then afterwards, we have a monthly accountability call. We have our Sales Fundamentals Workshop book club where we continue to send you books so we can implement what we've learned in the program together and bring our community closer together to support each other, to have a fantastic 2024 regardless of what the economy throws at us. However, if you don't sign up by Friday, November 3rd at 5 p.m. Central Time, the price tag goes up to $3,695. And one of the professional sales field manual courses, we have 5. Our most recent one is my brand new book and video series. There's audio. There's an assessment that goes with it. All of that goes away. So it's going to be a blast. We work year round for this event. It's one of the most enjoyable and yet exhausting things that I do. And we are thrilled to sell out our 5th year in a row. So that's it, friends. I'm going to close out like we always do with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.